Welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And wow, you guys have really outdone yourselves this time with the source material.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
We're talking charisma, we're talking those difficult conversations. We've even got a little touch of neuroscience in here. It's kind of like a crash course in like how to be your most confident and persuasive self.
Yeah.
So, are you ready to kind of break this down and figure out how we can actually like use these ideas to really make an impact?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is so fascinating to me about these sources is that they all seem to agree that charisma is not just like this magical inborn talent.
Okay.
Like, some people just have it and some people don't. It's actually much more a set of skills and mental states that can be learned and developed.
That is so encouraging to hear because
Yeah.
I look at all these books and articles and I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
But if it's something that can be learned,
Right.
like where do we even start?
I think a good place to start is understanding the three core components of charisma, and that's presence, power, and warmth.
Okay.
And these really are like the key ingredients, and like any good recipe, you can adjust those proportions
Okay.
depending on the situation.
So when we talk about presence, I mean, that seems pretty straightforward, like being in the moment, really paying attention.
Yeah.
But in our world of like constant distractions,
Okay.
how do you actually cultivate presence?
Yeah, it's about being much more intentional with
Okay.
your focus. So, if you think about like even just going into a meeting, right? Like taking some deep breaths,
Uh-huh.
just to kind of center yourself, quiet that mental chatter, like a mini meditation almost,
Yeah.
so you can be more fully present.
So it's not just about showing up physically, but like
Right.
really showing up mentally.
Absolutely.
Okay, now warmth.
Yeah.
What makes someone seem approachable and likable?
Warmth is really about creating a sense of connection. So when you genuinely listen to someone, make eye contact, show empathy, you're making them feel seen and understood.
Hmm.
Think of someone who, like, you just feel good being around them.
Yeah.
That's warmth in action.
It's like they put you at ease. They make
Exactly.
you feel comfortable kind of opening up.
Yeah.
Now, power,
Yes.
that can be a tricky one.
Yes.
I think a lot of times people misunderstand it as being aggressive or domineering.
Right. And that's not what charismatic power is about at all. It's much more about confidence and self-assuredness and the ability to influence others
Okay.
without being forceful. And it's interesting, because the research really suggests that there are different styles of charisma
Right.
that are effective in different situations.
So it's like having different tools in your charisma toolbox.
Exactly.
You choose the right one for the job.
Right.
Can you give me an example of like those different charisma styles?
Yeah, absolutely. So think about a time when maybe you needed to console a friend.
Uh-huh.
You probably used what we call focus charisma, being very present, listening intently, offering support. But let's say you're leading a team through a challenging project. You might need to tap into what we call authority charisma, which is more about inspiring confidence, motivating action.
I see. Okay, so kind of understanding those different styles and really how to
Right.
adapt to
Yeah.
those different situations.
Yeah.
Now, before we go any further, I want to talk about first impressions
Yes. for
because
sure.
especially when it comes to charisma,
Absolutely.
those first few seconds, I mean, these sources say they form incredibly quickly. Why is that?
If you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint,
Uh-huh.
it makes total sense, right? Our brains had to make very snap judgments about whether someone was a friend or foe
Oh, wow.
for survival.
Right.
So we're wired to very quickly assess people based on limited information.
And once that initial judgment is made, it's really hard
Yeah.
to change. So those first few seconds really do matter.
They do.
Okay, so one of these sources mentioned IBM salespeople and navy blue suits.
Yes.
I am curious about this.
Well, it's a classic example of what we call tribal signaling. So wearing that navy blue suit in a business setting, it sends a signal that you belong, that you understand the culture, the expectations. It's a subtle way of saying, I'm one of you.
So it's about striking that balance between like
Exactly.
fitting in and standing out.
Yeah.
But it's not just about clothes.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got body language, we've got that handshake.
Absolutely. I mean, remember that story about the woman who learned to give a power handshake
Yeah.
and saw her career take off?
Yeah.
It's a great example of how these seemingly small details can have a huge impact.
Yeah.
That firm handshake conveys confidence and competence, whereas a weak handshake can signal hesitation or insecurity.
It's amazing how much information we unconsciously pick up
Right.
on those nonverbal cues.
Right. It's like our bodies are speaking volumes
Yeah.
before we even say a word.
One of these sources even said that in high-pressure situations, our brains prioritize body language
That's right.
over words.
Yeah, that's because nonverbal communication is actually processed by a more primal part of the brain,
Oh, wow.
the part that's wired for survival.
Hmm.
So when we're feeling stressed or under pressure, we're instinctively looking for those nonverbal cues to assess safety and trustworthiness.
So you're saying that paying attention to body language
Yeah,
is really crucial,
it is.
especially in those high-stakes moments.
Yeah.
And it's not just about projecting our confidence.
No.
It's also about making others feel comfortable.
Exactly. One of the sources cited this fascinating study from the Harvard Business Review, and they found that negative feedback, like if you have to give someone negative feedback, if it's delivered with positive body language, it's actually better received
Wow.
than praise that's delivered poorly.
That is wild.
It really speaks to the power of
Yeah.
nonverbal communication.
That the way you deliver the message can be even more important than the message itself.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're constantly sending signals whether we realize it or not. Okay, so I'm ready to dive a little deeper into this world of body language. What are some specific techniques that we can use to really project both that warmth and that confidence?
Well, one technique that I find incredibly powerful is mirroring.
Okay.
And that's really where you're subtly matching the other person's body language,
Okay.
their posture, their gestures, even their tone of voice.
So if someone is like leaning forward and I subtly lean forward,
Uh-huh.
that's creating a sense of rapport.
Yeah, it taps into this very natural human desire to connect with people who are like us.
Okay.
And it may sound simple, but our brains are actually wired to respond to these subtle cues. So when we mirror someone, it's like saying, I understand you, I'm on the same wavelength. And that can create an immediate sense of trust and connection.
It almost sounds too simple to be effective.
I know.
Like, really?
I know. It's funny how these things work, right?
Yeah, yeah. Now, there was a story in one of these sources about a guy named Darius
Uh-huh.
who used mirroring to, like, secure this major partnership for his company.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, Darius' story is a perfect example of how mirroring can be used to influence outcomes.
Okay.
So he was meeting with this very high-level executive who had this very distinctive way of sitting with his arms crossed and his legs spread wide.
Okay.
And instead of trying to counteract that posture, Darius subtly mirrored it.
So he basically adopted that same power pose.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
And the executive, without even realizing it, felt this unconscious sense of connection with Darius.
Right.
Really helped to kind of break down those barriers, create a more collaborative atmosphere.
So mirroring can really be like a secret weapon for building relationships, influencing people.
Yeah.
But what about negative body language? Should we mirror that too?
That's a good question. And that's where what we call the mirror and lead technique comes in.
Mm.
So let's say you're talking to someone who's very closed off, arms crossed, leaning back.
Uh-huh.
You might start by subtly mirroring that posture, just to kind of establish rapport. But then, gradually, you start shifting your own body language in a more open and positive direction.
So you're slowly leading them towards a more
Yes.
positive state without even realizing it?
Exactly.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. But sometimes you need to project more authority, right? And one of these sources talked about being the big gorilla. What is that all about?
It's such a great metaphor for understanding how to project confidence through your physical presence. So imagine a gorilla moving through the jungle. It takes up space, it stands tall, it commands attention, and we can do the same thing, even in subtle ways.
So it's about owning your space, not shrinking back.
Exactly.
I love that.
And there's a fascinating connection between posture and confidence. Think about someone who walks into a room with their head held high, shoulders back. They just automatically project that aura of authority.
They do. And there was a tip in one of the sources about practicing what they call the gorilla walk in a crowded environment.
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
It's a fun exercise. So basically, the idea is to just walk with purpose and intention, taking up space as you move through a crowd. It might feel a little awkward at first, but it can really help you feel more confident, more in control.
I'm about to try that one.
Yeah.
But you know, the sources also point out that sometimes the most powerful presence is actually stillness.
That's such an important point. I mean, think about a judge delivering a verdict or a CEO making a major announcement. Their power often lies in that stillness, that calm composure. It's a different kind of authority, quiet, steady, unwavering.
So it's really about choosing the right
Yeah.
energy for the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be the big gorilla,
Yeah.
and sometimes you need to be that calm, steady force.
Right.
Now, speaking of calmness and composure, I'm realizing that listening plays a huge role in all of this.
It does.
True charisma requires genuine presence, which means really listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. And I will admit, one of my bad habits is I tend to interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I get so excited about the conversation that I jump in before the other person is finished. And one of these sources actually suggested that even interrupting with a positive comment can backfire. Why is that?
Because even well-intentioned interruptions, they can still send the subtle message that you're not fully listening or that your thoughts are more important than theirs.
Ouch, I never thought about it that way. Okay.
Yeah.
So the key is to really focus on being present, letting the other person finish their thought without interrupting.
Exactly. Just resist that urge to jump in, even if you have the most brilliant comment or question. And here's the pro tip. Let people interrupt you.
Okay.
Your job is to make them feel heard and understood,
Yeah.
not to control the conversation.
I am going to have to work on that one.
I think we all do.
It's so tempting to try to steer the conversation.
Yes.
But I see how letting go of that control can actually create
Mm.
a more relaxed
Absolutely.
and engaging dynamic.
Yeah.
Now, one of these sources told this great story about an executive who actually got job offers by letting the interviewer do most of the talking.
That's a great story. It really highlights the power of making people feel heard and valued.
Yeah.
And when you give them the space to share their thoughts and ideas, you really build a connection that can be incredibly powerful in any interaction.
So it's not just about like saying the right things, but it's also about creating the right space for others
Exactly.
to feel heard
Yes.
and understood. Now, while we're talking about communication, let's not forget the power of our voice.
Yes.
You know, I remember reading about this professor who got rave reviews just by changing how he used his voice. It was all about something called vocal fluctuation.
That's right. And the way we use our voices can make a huge difference in how we are perceived. For example, just speaking slowly can convey authority and confidence.
Like each word carries more weight when
Oh,
you
that's
give it
exact-
time to land.
Yeah. And pauses can be incredibly powerful too. Pausing before you speak creates that sense of anticipation, makes you seem more in control.
It's like building suspense in a movie.
Exactly.
You pause at just the right moment, and it keeps the audience on the edge of their seat.
I love that analogy.
Okay. And then there's the power of dropping your intonation at the end of a sentence.
Yes.
It's like you're saying, this is what I believe, and I'm not seeking approval or validation.
Exactly. All of these vocal techniques, when used together, can create a really powerful, charismatic presence.
This is amazing stuff.
So,
But I'm also sensing a theme here. It's not just about external techniques. It's also about getting your inner world
right.
working for you.
Absolutely. One of the sources talk about the importance of visualization as a tool for shifting your mindset.
Okay.
And it's not just some new agey concept. Olympic skiers use it to prepare for competitions.
Really?
They'll visualize their entire run, feeling their muscles, experiencing every turn.
It's like creating a mental blueprint for success. And your mind doesn't really know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one.
Right.
So if you can see it and feel it in your mind, your body's more likely to follow suit.
Exactly. Visualization allows you to tap into the incredible power of your subconscious mind.
Okay, I'm ready to try this. How can we use visualization to boost our charisma?
Let's do a quick exercise.
Okay.
Close your eyes and just imagine a time when you felt truly confident and powerful. Maybe it was giving a presentation, closing a deal, or even just acing a test. Just see yourself in that moment. Feel that energy in your body. Hear the positive feedback you receive.
Oh, I'm already feeling my confidence surge.
I know, it's amazing, right? And the more you practice this visualization,
Yeah.
the easier it will be to access those feelings in real-life situations.
Now, one of these sources also talked about gratitude and compassion as pathways to warmth.
Uh-huh.
How do those fit into the picture?
Well, gratitude is such a powerful emotion that can instantly shift your mindset from scarcity to abundance, from fear to love. And when you're feeling grateful, it shows You radiate warmth and positivity.
It's like gratitude is contagious.
It
It
is.
just makes you more magnetic and approachable.
And then there's compassion, which is really about recognizing that shared humanity in all of us,
Yeah,
seeing beyond our differences and connecting on a deeper level.
I love that. But let's get practical for a moment. What about those difficult conversations that we all face?
Yes.
How can we deliver bad news or give critical feedback with both grace and confidence?
It's tough, right? Nobody likes to be the bearer of bad news.
No, it's not fun.
One of the sources used this example of these like rising stars at an accounting firm. They were brilliant,
Uh-huh.
but they ended up being kind of disliked by their colleagues because they were always the ones pointing out mistakes.
They were the bearer of bad news.
They became associated with negativity, even though they were just doing their jobs.
Right.
And it's a good reminder that how you deliver a message can be just as important as
Yeah.
the message itself.
So when you have to deliver difficult news, how do you avoid becoming that person?
I think it all starts with empathy. Really put yourself in the other person's shoes
Yeah.
and try to understand how they might be feeling. Choose the right time and place for the conversation. You don't want to have these tough talks when people are stressed or rushed.
Right. You want to create a space where they can really hear what you're saying.
Exactly.
What about body language? Any tips there?
Oh, absolutely. Use compassionate body language. Make eye contact, uncross your arms, lean in slightly to show you're listening. And when you are giving criticism, focus on specific behaviors, not personal traits.
So instead of saying you're always late,
Mm-hmm.
you might say,
Correct.
I noticed you've been late to the last few meetings. Is there anything preventing you from being on time?
Exactly. It's addressing the behavior without attacking the person. And then when you're apologizing, be sincere. Show that you understand the impact of your actions and outline the steps to prevent it from happening again.
These are such practical tips. I'm feeling a lot more confident about handling those tricky conversations now.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered so much ground today. I mean, from the science behind first impressions to like the power of visualization and then even mastering those like difficult conversations. It's amazing how much you can learn about charisma just by kind of digging into these sources.
And remember, charisma is a skill, not a gift. So anyone can learn and develop these techniques
Yeah.
to practice. And so, think back to a time when you felt truly charismatic.
Yeah.
What was your internal state? What were you focusing on? And, try to tap into that feeling and use the tools we've discussed today to make it your kind of default setting.
I love that. Pay attention to those moments when you're at your best and really use them as a blueprint for kind of building your charismatic presence. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Thank you so much. And I know you guys are going to make amazing things happen when you put all this into practice.